On today's show, we are joined by the daughter of Dale Earnhardt Sr., Kelley Earnhardt Miller. On today's show, Kelley Earnhardt Miller shares why you still have to show up if you work in a family business, how to earn the respect of your peers in the game of business. And she shares about her journey to becoming one of the top businesswomen in the world of NASCAR. All this and more as she breaks down her new book, Drive, 9 Lessons to Win in Business and in Life.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes! Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are joined by kind of a living legend here, the daughter of Dale Earnhardt Sr., Miss Kelley Earnhardt Miller. She is a top businesswoman in the world of NASCAR and a class act. Kelley Earnhardt Miller, welcome onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, ma'am?
Well, I'm doing good. Interesting times, but I'm hanging in there.
Well, you know, when we decided to have you on the show to talk about your new book, Drive, 9 Lessons to Win in Business and in Life, that was based upon the premise that we could actually be in business, that we could actually freely conduct business. Could you share with the listeners where you are located and maybe how your state has been affected by this coronavirus mandated government shutdown stuff?
Yeah, so I'm in North Carolina, and here just slightly north of Charlotte, which is between Charlotte and the capital of Raleigh, is our biggest kind of metropolis. So we have quite a few cases, you know, at each of those places. I think we have about 350 or so cases in the state, which is nothing compared to what some of our other states are dealing with. But this is just also strange and trying and I mean, nothing in my lifetime that I've been through anything of the sort. So it's really strange. We do not have any specific mandates to not do business. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. We do. Yep. Tomorrow, starting on Wednesday, the governor shut down gyms, cinemas, salons, things of that nature, but not every business. Our junior motorsports, which is our race team, we have been shut down for the last week, and we're closed for at least 2 more weeks. As maybe some of your listeners know, we don't go back racing until the 2nd week of May. So we have a little time on our hands, but it's definitely strange times right now.
Obviously, you're a hardworking lady, and your family's a hardworking family. And some people work very hard and have been able to earn a decent income, and some people are in the process of building some wealth. Some people haven't accumulated wealth yet, but the average American right now, according to Forbes, they're saying the average American has less than $400 saved, regardless of income, which is an interesting idea. You know, people who, like dentists, they might have been making some money but spending a lot too, people paying off those student loans. What would you say as an encouragement to the average American who is without money right now? What would be your encouragement that you would have? I know you and I share the same faith, and I feel like you could really encourage somebody right now.
Yeah, I think that you know, if you're not, turn to the Word for sure, and you know, put your faith in the Bible and Jesus, that He will, you know, see you through and carry you through. Even in times like this, though, you know, our faith can be tested, but you know, he comes through, and there's so many people that, you know, are filled with anxiety and fears of what's going to happen. But you know, I hope that they'll, you know, invest some time in the Bible and in mankind too as well, because there's good people out there, and there's people that they probably are their church family or friends or some community of people. There's community of people that stand ready to encourage and lift and help. So it's a difficult time there.
When you look at the cover of your book, Drive, 9 Lessons to Win in Business and in Life, it appears as though you only eat kale. It appears as though you are just a healthy woman, a great American. So, but you've lived through some adversities despite being only 22 years old. So let me just ask you, of all the things that you have lived through, could you list them? And I'm going to fire off a few, and you tell me which one was the craziest before this. Do you remember Y2K? Y2K.
Yeah.
Then we had 9/11. 9/11. Now, a lot of people don't know this. The swine flu actually took the lives of 12,000 Americans. The swine flu. People don't remember that. The swine flu took the lives of 12,000 Americans. And the swine flu.
I remember the swine flu, but that went right past me,
Yeah, we didn't have social
like
media.
this.
We didn't have social media, which is interesting. The swine flu actually infected 60 million people. Could you imagine what it would be like right now if we had 60 million cases of the coronavirus? And we had 60 million cases of the swine flu as reported by the CDC. Of all of those, which of those other events was the craziest? Or maybe a different event that was, in your mind, the craziest, where the collective emotion America felt was fear?
I'd have to say, in my lifetime, 9/11.
9/11,
yeah. I think so. Just for me, that would be the fear of just not knowing what was next and what was happening. And we take so many things for granted in that day, traveling and flying. And who would have ever thought that, someone could come into our airports and take over our airplanes like that, So for me, that's probably the craziest, fearfulest thing that I just remember about Y2K. So I'm only 47, so
yeah.
I haven't lived too much of my life yet, but enough. Y2K, everybody wanting to hoard, canned vegetables in your basement.
I remember that.
We were going to run out of food.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Now, you, your dad, Dale Earnhardt Senior, was a living legend. What was it like to be raised by Dale Earnhardt Sr.?
Well, I get that question often, and my answer is always the same. I don't know what it was like to be raised by anybody else. And so, if you're doing a comparative analysis here, it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to throw that question out there. Or a good answer, I guess, that other people understand. But we weren't the typical 9-to-5 family. So, his work was on the weekends, racing. He was home during the week, but was busy, working on his farm and doing things like that. So we weren't kind of the typical 9-to-5 family of coming home, all eating dinner together or things like that. And we didn't travel to a lot of the races because my brother and I were in school. So we would stay with nannies and relatives and things like that. My dad had quite a reputation. Most either loved or hated him on Sundays after the race was over. And so we dealt with a lot of assumptions and different things like that, and a little hate here and a lot of love there, and so it was different for sure. For the people out there that don't know just a whole lot about NASCAR, why did some people hate your dad? Some people out there don't have a context for NASCAR, and I have done some research, obviously, and then I'm familiar with your dad's story. But why would your dad be hated as a NASCAR driver sometimes by some people? Well, he was kind of a rough and tumble guy. So he would move people out of the way and rough and kind of was a roughhouser. And so a lot of people, there were a lot of rivalries back in that day with drivers, and Darrell Waltrip and some of those guys, Jeff Bodine, where they would race each other really hard. And my dad was a very intimidating person and kind of called it like he seen it, and so it rubbed people the wrong way at times. So, would you hear about it at school, or would you hear about it at the dinner table? How would you know somebody was mad at your dad? Usually at school. Okay. And we dealt with things like people just assuming that we were snobs or had everything that we, wanted. And my dad was complete opposite. He made you work and earn anything and everything. It was you begged to go, school shopping for new clothes at the beginning of the year or things like that, because he just, we definitely weren't just getting anything and everything that we wanted. We had to really work hard for, just like, most people, to earn things. And we had chores and allowances and all those things, like a lot of families have these days. So, but that was kind of the hard part, was people assuming things that they didn't really know, and most of which weren't true, just because, they thought you were famous and in the limelight.
When so many people whose parents are super successful choose to do the opposite of their parents, but you have decided to pursue a career in the man's world of racing, and maybe that's offensive for somebody out there, but you know what I mean. Racing, it's pretty much entirely a man's world, or was a man's world, and I mean, you could have chosen a lot of things, but you decided to hop in there in the world of rough and tumble mechanic guys, fingers covered in grease. What made you want to enter into the world of racing?
Well, it really was. I mean, I was around the shop most of my life as a kid, growing up around the race cars and that kind of thing. But my dad really wanted me to go to college. Nobody in our family had went to college and graduated from college, and my dad quit school in the 8th grade. So he really had aspirations for me to attend college, which I did. And I started out being a criminal justice major. I was kind of interested in investigative and that kind of thing. And but about 6 months into that, I decided that it wasn't really broad enough for me. And at this point, I had no clue what I was going to do. Being in the NASCAR world wasn't even on my radar at that point. But I decided to do business, and just felt like that would kind of be broad, if I could own my own business or do anything that I wanted to with that kind of knowledge. And so about 3 years into college, I moved from Wilmington back home to Charlotte and started working, finished school up in Charlotte at UNC Charlotte, and started working for a marketing company, and that was in racing. And so that's kind of where I, put my foot in the door and just kind of started on the business side. I also was a race car driver at the time, 1994, 5, and 6. I raced late model stock cars, kind of on your Saturday night racetrack.
Yeah.
And did that for a little bit. But the business thing really worked out well for me. And I started working in the souvenir business of NASCAR, and for the company that made die casts and sold T-shirts and hats and things like that. And so I just kind of progressed into that, and really what put me where I am today in terms of running junior motorsports and working for my brother was my dad's death. I don't think that had my dad not passed away, this same career path wouldn't have laid out for me. It just, his death, created a need for Dale to have someone to manage his business interests, because those things were being done by my dad prior to that, with him driving at Dale and Home Incorporated. So, that opened up, and I came to work for Dale, and we've been doing this together for 20 years.
When your dad died, my dad died of Lou Gehrig's disease 3 years ago, and when he died, it wasn't a public thing. I was with him when he died. Your dad's death, people still watch it on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, what's it like knowing that your dad's death is still viewable on YouTube? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's
a weird feeling, because, I literally watching the wreck.
Yeah.
What goes through my mind when I watch the wreck is my dad's dying inside that race car.
Yeah.
And so my mind is playing out the events of what's happening, literally, hitting the steering wheel or whatever's happening. And when the car comes to rest, me knowing that he's inside, passed away. And so it's a really weird thing to continually, see that. I mean, recently I watched Michael Waltrip had a documentary, you see things like that. I mean, it's kind of replayed in a lot of places for me just because of who my dad was, right? So I don't go type it in YouTube by any means, but it just kind of comes up in a lot of natural settings, natural places. But it's a strange concept. At the time it happened, it was really difficult because you were sharing it with so many people, and you really didn't feel like you were able. I talk about this a little bit in my book, people coming up and saying, oh God, I just haven't been the same since your dad died. And I'm thinking, yeah, me neither.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, you're a courageous person. You're a person who earned the respect of your peers. But I think a lot of people that come from celebrity parents, it's really hard to get respect. And again, I know I'm not probably the only person out there that's probably going to take this take. You don't hear this very much, but I've interviewed a lot of really successful people that are second generation, and people feel like you're almost a token. Like, it's hard, in my opinion, it's harder for you to earn the respect of your peers than it is for people that, or it could be harder, especially as a female. Mm-hmm. How did you earn the respect? How long did it take to do that?
I don't really know how long it took or whatnot. I feel like that in our industry is really, down home, Southern rooted, very, that Southern hospitality, that pat your back, you're my friend kind of industry, the way that it grew from the South. And so I feel like because my dad was the person he was a common sense guy, he was a good business guy, he was a friend to everyone, well liked, well respected, that people, because I got into the business and showed that, I deserve that respect because of my work ethic and things like that, I think it just kind of automatically happened. I think a lot of people, I get up and go to work every single day. I do exactly what I expect my employees to do. And so, there's a lot of people that have family businesses where you don't ever see the family show up. The business is happening, the business is running, and I've literally ran into this myself. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize your brother and sister worked at your business. They're like, oh yeah, they're just on the payroll.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And you don't earn respect that way.
Now, you felt inspired to write this book, obviously, your new book, Drive, 9 Lessons to Win in Business and Life. What first inspired you to write the new book?
Well, I really wanted to write about growing up as Earnhardt's daughter. That was kind of the premise of what the type of book I wanted to write. And I was talking to, we were in a meeting with Dale's publisher of his book, and I was telling them, about wanting to write a book, and this is what I wanted to write about. And honestly, the lady looked at me and she said, nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody wants to hear about, growing up the daughter of somebody successful or growing up the kid of someone successful. And I felt like that they would, because our NASCAR fans are just, you cannot give them enough information about who, what, when, and where. They want to know every detail. And so I felt like that it would be something that would be enjoyable for my crowd. But as we got to talking, they said, why don't you concentrate on your own experiences and what you've accomplished and what you've done. And you can, include some biographical information in there about growing up and kind of how you got to that point. But we don't want to sell a book about growing up as Earnhardt's daughter. And so I was like, okay. And so it kind of morphed into this, 9 lessons and my business experience. And I'm real happy with the way it came out, even though that wasn't kind of where my head was in the very beginning.
So let's talk about this here. So your book, you lay out these lessons, and I certainly don't want you to give away all the lessons, but maybe could you share with us maybe a couple of lessons? Like one of your lessons, you said you talked about in the book being authentic and approachable. If we could talk about just a few of the lessons, can you tell us about being authentic and approachable and what you mean by that?
Well, I think for me, this lesson for me kind of comes from just my experiences, even really starting growing up as my dad's daughter. You always felt like you had to be on your P's and Q's and being the daughter of someone famous, you certainly, weren't to air any dirty laundry or, nothing negative needed to be said or come out or anything like that. And so sometimes I felt like we kind of lived, behind a facade a little bit. And so for me, just being authentic and approachable really just means that, being honest, being able to share your truths is very risky because, there's a lot of rejection and disappointment that can come with that. But I just feel like, being who you are, gives you the person the most peace and happiness. And that's what life should be about, And so I feel like because I had to grow up kind of watching and pretending, so to speak, it was really difficult. So I just think that it's important to be authentic and approachable. And approachable to me, is like knowing at my job, knowing my people, being on the floor with them, making myself visible to them as being approachable. And, like we just mentioned before, if you're on the payroll but you're never there, what's the point? And so, my people, sometimes I'm too approachable. I mean, sometimes I put myself in the middle of too many situations.
Yeah.
And I'll have people come to me before they'll go to their supervisor or, something like that because I'm so approachable. So sometimes it can get me in trouble, but I think it's real important.
You also talk in your book about managing your emotions. Now, what's really crazy is you sent me a text message right on time today, and you said, "Hey, we still doing the interview?" And you did that because I committed to be on the interview, and I'm known for being consistent, and you are too, and that's a fair question. And I was literally on the phone right before when you sent me a text. I saw the text come in, and I was on the phone with certain elected officials that were telling me that we are not allowed to be in business, and of any kind. We can't be open for business. For what appears to be maybe 15 to 30 days. And I say all of my companies, all of the employees. And it just, whoa, And then you have those moments where you go,
yeah.
Do I actually call her? Do I actually do it? Do I do it? Do I go cry in a ball? Do I, the day my dad, died from Lou Gehrig's, do you get up and do you write the payroll check that week? Do you do that? Do you take care of the hundreds of employees, or do you throw a pity party when you get that sales call and you get rejected on that big deal you thought would go through, when maybe book sales don't go as well as you want them to, or maybe they go better? There's these ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. Tell us about what your dad taught you about managing your emotions, or maybe what you've learned about managing your emotions.
Well, I've just learned through the years you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you don't, right?
Yeah.
So, and I've been there. I wouldn't say my dad was the best at it, but we kind of have a hothead in a sense, us Earnhardts do. But, I think that I've learned a lot of lessons in terms of, where I've upset people or I've given responses without understanding all the facts or something of that nature. And I think that's just what happens when, you let your emotions talk before anything else. And so I think it's important to kind of slow down and allow yourself to process the thoughts and give yourself time to think through, like just in this situation that we're going through with the COVID, what it is all so scary, but, sit down and think about how we can be part of the solution. What can we do? It's real easy just to shoot to the emotional part of it. And then when you start thinking through the facts, and we've been doing this for our own work, my first thought is, oh gosh, we're not going to be able to afford to pay our people. We're not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to do that. But, if you sit down and you gather up the facts and you sit down and you crunch the numbers and see what you can do, it wasn't as scary as, my emotions first thought it was going to be. So, I think just stepping back and really taking time to kind of look at everything and look at what's factual, we can, we just get a lot further than kind of throwing those emotions out there. And, it made me think when you said, do you, after your dad died, do you go in and you write the check? I lost my mom last April to lung cancer. And, during that whole process, I still had to do the right thing, and to do the right thing for my mom and help and take care of her, do the right thing for my family, my husband, my kids, do the right thing for my work, and kind of, prioritize things and put things into perspective in terms of what needed to get done. And people understand that too, I think, in those situations.
In your book, you write about aiming for a win-win. And I see so many people that want a win-lose. So, if there's so many reporters and interviewers and podcasters, and the idea is, well, I'm going to ask Kelley some trick questions, and then I'm going to one-up her. And it almost makes it where as a guest, sometimes you almost feel like, leery of doing an interview because you're like, is this guy going to bait me? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of, I'm sure you've had reporters do that to you. Yeah. So even as an interviewer.
Why do you want the interview? Do you want to talk about the plane crash or do you want to talk about XYZ?
Right. You know what I mean? And so it's a win-win. I mean, a win-win is what makes this great country work. The golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. We know these things. But once you aim for a win-win, you know how it is. You start going in the workplace and there's somebody who maybe you hired or some vendor you're working with who wants to do a lose-lose or a win-lose. They want to win, they want you to lose. Or they want you to lose and they want you to lose just because they lost. So talk to me about how do you go for a win-win in a world where some people, if they can't win, they want you to lose, or they want both parties to lose if they can't win.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I just walk away from situations like that. I mean, we've completely not done deals, or I mean, you just have to stand true to your ethics and morals. So, and your gut and what you want to do. I mean, we will turn and walk away if we can't, make it beneficial for both parties. So, I mean, for us, our NASCAR business is built on sponsorship. So it's always important for them to have a win. And so, that's kind of the goal for in those situations because it drives so much of our business.
Right.
But so I don't have to talk about losing too much because it's just the way it works in our business. But I just think it's important. I think that relationships last longer. You get more out of the situation if there's a win-win in it for all parties. So no matter what you're working on, whether it's business or personal.
Tell me about your daily routine. I mean, what time are you waking up every day? What do the first 4 hours of your life look like there, Miss Kelley?
Well, 6 o'clock's the wake-up call. My husband and I spend about 30 to 45 minutes on the couch together having coffee and reading our devotionals. We each I have a women's devotional book, and he has a men's devotional book that he likes. And so that's kind of the first 45 minutes. Then I get myself ready. We have a 8-year-old son, and get him up and get going for school, making breakfast, the typical mom things, and gathering things up to get out of the house. And we have to leave the house by generally 7:45 to get to school on time, and then straight to work from there. And so get into work about 8:30, and start your day there. It's kind of my normal routine every day.
Well, I really want you to have the ultimate win-win. I want to give you the mic to share anything with the listeners that you want to share. I want, this is your platform. You've got about 500,000 people listening. Some of them are taking notes. Some of them are going, this is cool. I didn't even know you were doing this. Some people are going, oh, that's what she's doing. Some people are going, oh, that's the lady I've seen on TV. Some people are going, I'm going to get that book. But what is a message you want to communicate to all the listeners out there?
Well, I think, first off, check out NASCAR if you don't know anything about it. It's really cool. Try to go to a race. It's really fun. There's probably a lot of people that don't know about NASCAR. But, I don't know, enjoy life. Pick up my book if you want to know more about me. You want to know more about leading from the heart. I mean, my message is about just being real and authentic and leading from the heart and compassion and empathy. It's who I am. It's what I'm about. And I think the world needs more of it. So I hope that, people will want to hear that message and see that message. But I just wish everybody peace and happiness. This is a trying, tough time, but we'll get through it. And my prayers are with everyone out there that's struggling, and just try to put your best foot forward and turn a page in the Bible and put your faith there. Because it's some tough times.
Well, you know what? I really do appreciate your time so much there, Kelley. Again, joining us on a difficult day for so many people. I hope that we have been able to shine a light into their world, and I hope you just have a blessed rest of your day.
I've enjoyed it.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
If you don't understand you're the one, you won't understand why you're being attacked like you're being attacked. Whenever the enemy knows that the one is coming, he always sets traps to stop them from succeeding because they're the one. And to him whom much is given, much is required. And so the text starts out talking about Abraham because Abraham is the one. And Abraham had to move out from his country and away from his kindred because he was the one. So he was a misfit because he was the one. So he didn't get to stay because he was the one. So he had to live in isolation because he was the one. So he probably was lonely because he was the one. Because he was the one. Because he was the one.
New city, new state, it's gonna be a mean race. All the sins that I have done, I'm grateful for a clean slate. Felt like I was different, I ain't never tried to prove it though. Stack your chips, get on your grind, don't never make excuses, bro. Solid as a rock, loyalty is all I ever know. Doing what you've always done, then homie, you can never grow. Conversations with the Lord, I ask him would I ever blow. Told me I got dead weight, so friends, I gotta let them go. We don't make it. I know that they hating, it's all on their faces. We destined for greatness. I said, I've been patient. I know it's my moment, no stopping, we going. This thing is in motion. What you gon' do when your back's against the wall? You gon' stand up like a champ or you gon' curl up in the ball? I'm the one, I've been chosen, so I'm riding through it all. Gotta keep your faith up so you can rise and never fall. Let's go.
And Abraham had to move out from his country and away from his kindred because he was the one. So he didn't get to stay with his kinfolks because he was the one. They are always on the hit list because hell knows that he is the one. I want to talk to some people that have been up under crazy attack. And to him whom much is given, much is required.
The devil's been attacking, I ain't stressing from it. Cause every time that happens, there's a blessing coming. Obsessing over problems that you can't change. I have you going crazy, learn your lesson from it. Remember when they cut my water off, homie? Man, reflecting how they cut my lights off too. Dog, I had to move back in with my mama. Had me feeling like a failure, that's what life would do. Gotta get up on your grind, I had to make the right move. Ramen noodles every night, I had some beans and rice too. Execution is the key, don't tell me what you might do. Favor from the man above, no other God is like you. You can knock me down, but I promise I ain't staying there. Feeling like I am the one, we just begun, let's make it clear. Me and Clay clicking up, y'all don't even get it, bruh. About to be colossal, taking over when we rip it up, hey.
And Abraham had to move out from his country and away from his kindred because he was the one. So he didn't get to stay with his kinfolks because he was the one. They are always on the hit list because hell knows that he is the one. I want to talk to some people that have been up under crazy attack. And to him whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah, started from the bottom, now I'm here. Overnight success after 23 years. Got the dragon energy, got another gear. Got a superpower, man, I call persevere. Cause I never have it thought people call fear. I never stop writing when the future's not clear. We're gonna be dead soon and I'm just being real. So I'll be paralyzed by the thoughts that we feel.
So you'll stop begging for people to come into agreement with you. So you'll stop doing polls and census and trying to get everybody to come into consensus with your vision so that you won't need nobody to say amen when you preach because you already know that you got heaven saying amen. The power of one.
Listen to the entire T.D. Jakes sermon, Grasping the Moment, by visiting T.D. Jakes' YouTube channel, simply named T.D. Jakes.